home games. 2 games where you can rely on your crowd a little bit more to help you through it, especially on defense. And I wouldn't push this. If you're Jalen Hurts, knowing that you have to be healthy for the postseason, and it's not that, it's not that you. I don't know. Like with the concussion and the hit from Frankie Louvu, and it looked like he got his bell rung going into the tent. Like they ruled him out pretty quickly. They said evaluated for a concussion. It's not like it didn't really feel like there was much of a chance for him to come back in. You want a long, sustained playoff run, and you want to be healthy for it. So I would imagine that they're going to, or at least they should, slow play this thing for as much as you can and not try to get him back for 2 games that you should be able to win without him. Now, to find out the severity of the Kenny Pickett injury, I think it's going to be a pretty important news item today coming out of the Eagles' day after availability. Because who did you say is their quarterback?
I think some guy named McBride.
Trey McBride. Is that accurate?
Is that a person? If they're playing Trey McBride against the Cowboys, they're going to slip even further back in the NFC standings. I'm Aaron Goldhammer with Courtney Cronin on Sportsmanlike on ESPN Radio and on the ESPN app. One of the other weird things that Philly did, and Sal Paolantonio covers the Eagles for ESPN, amongst other things. Of course, the legendary Sal Pal pointed this out as well as anybody. Jalen Hurts goes out. Philly was dominating the game. Saquon had over 100 yards and 2 touchdowns in the first quarter. They don't change their offense. I mean, who's more athletic, Jalen Hurts or Kenny Pickett? You're expecting Kenny Pickett to run a bunch of RPOs? It was pretty eye-opening to me that they didn't make any in-game adjustments when Pickett came in, and I thought it really exposed them and then put Saquon in a really bad spot. He only had like 40 yards. Courtney, the rest of the game, I would have totally changed the game plan when Jalen Hurts went out with that concussion.
Yeah, by the way, the quarterback's Tanner McKee. Trey McBride, I believe, plays for a different team. So that would be the 3rd-string quarterback for the Philadelphia Eagles. Another name for you to have to.
Apologies to Trey McBride and Tanner McKee's family. I'm going to have to send some apology notes this holiday season. I'm sorry, Courtney.
It is interesting because Washington changed what they were doing defensively. They went from playing 2 high to a bunch of single high once Kenny Pickett went into the game. They committed more to stopping the run, and as you mentioned, like the effectiveness of Saquon Barkley kind of took a hit there after he eclipsed the 2,000 yards from scrimmage mark that he hit earlier in the game. He still finished with 150 yards rushing on 29 carries. I looked at that stat line. I'm like, man, they ran him quite a bit. So I feel like the health factor here and the longevity preserving factor extends beyond just Jalen Hurts, but also to the Philadelphia Eagles running back and run game too. Because to stay healthy at a time where I know the 1 seed kind of feels like it's going to be either between Minnesota and the Detroit Lions. I know that, from the outside looking in, it feels like Philadelphia's chances of getting that are probably a little slimmer at this point following this loss, because they could have locked up the division last night. Now they've got to wait until week 17 at the earliest to do that. But I would be a little wary of that, considering what's at stake here, and that you don't want to end with a sour taste, which ends up becoming 5 losses versus the 3 that you currently have.
Sounds like the Eagles last year, doesn't it?
Yeah, if you stumbled on the stretch with the Cowboys and the Giants, 2 teams that they will be favored in, and you should be able to beat those teams, whether it's Jalen Hurts not playing, whatever it is. I mean, I would not be too concerned there, but I also think that you've got to be cognizant of what the long game is here instead of just trying to get through the regular season.
I'm Aaron Goldhammer. I now know the difference between Tanner McKee and Trey McBride. She is Courtney Cronin on Sportsmanlike, is on ESPN2 and on ESPN Radio. The chase for the record here is an interesting narrative with the Eagles. 268 yards Saquon Barkley needs in order to eclipse Eric Dickerson's all-time single-season rushing record. Now, I will point out here that Saquon would do it in 17 games, whereas Eric Dickerson did it in 16 games. I don't know, Courtney, is this such a hallowed sports ground here that the Eagles should focus on making sure Saquon tries to get the best chance to get the 268? Wow. Or are you just kind of like, man, let's get ready for the playoffs and not worry about the record book?
If it comes down to week 18 and they've already, if there's no way for them to better their seeding chances or where they're going to be seated in the NFC playoffs, I could see the argument for resting him.
Yeah.
But let's go back to the game against the Pittsburgh Steelers last week. That was coming off of all of the noise and drama about the passing offense in Philadelphia and Jalen Hurts, afterwards wearing his Kangol hat backwards saying, so this is what y'all wanted. They were forcing the ball to their receivers. They made a concerted effort to show you our passing game is just fine the way that it is. And it can beat a really good defense along the way. I feel like Nick Sirianni's going to, just knowing the personality there and seeing what we've seen and knowing what that record would mean for that offense, a team that went and snatched Saquon Barkley from a division opponent in free agency, I feel like they're going to force their way to get him that record. You can't tell me any differently based on the way that they've coached these games and based on the way that these games have gone. When they've tried to assert their dominance and they do it from the very start, they usually end up like on the right side of that. So I could absolutely see the case for them being like, no, 268 is doable. He had 150 yesterday. You have 150 next week, 150 the week after that against the New York Giants to end the season. He's pretty much there.
I would put a small asterisk by this record if Saquon ends up getting it, because having the extra game, I mean, if you gave Eric Dickerson an extra game, he'd still be the ultimate rushing champ. I guess records were made to be broken. That's one that I like still having from when I was a kid. I've known since I was about 8 that Eric Dickerson was the single-season rushing champ. The list of guys that have had 2,000 yards in a season: Barry Sanders, Terrell Davis, Jamal Lewis. It's a pretty illustrious list, and I think Saquon, either way, however they choose to handle this, is probably going to join it. All right, coming up next. Did one quarterback in the NFL show us why he cannot be trusted moving forward? This is Unsportsmanlike on ESPN Radio and on ESPN2.
Unsportsmanlike.
I can see the attendant looking how to spell Bentley.
Honda may be easier.
Ford. I'm not trying to put it out there, but I played 11 years in the National Football League. I ain't played for nothing.
Unsportsmanlike. More coming up next.
Texting enrolls you into recurring automated text messages. Consent not required to purchase. Message and data rates may apply.
Hey, Dan, how you doing? Haven't seen you around the gym for a while.
Yeah, I've really fallen off. Since I turned 40, I just don't get the results I used to get.
Could be lower testosterone.
Lower T.
Yeah, I went through it a while back. Once you hit 40, your body has less free testosterone. I got Nugenix Total T, and it's made a huge difference for me.
I've seen that ad on TV. Is it for real?
Oh, yeah. The key ingredient is something called Tesnor, which helps boost free and total testosterone levels to help you trim up and stay lean.
And it's made a difference for you?
Man, I feel like I'm in my 20s again, at work, in the gym, and in the bedroom.
Are they still giving out complimentary bottles for people to try it for themselves?
Yeah, you just need to send them a text.
Text BIKE to 321-321 right now for your complimentary bottle of Nugenix Total T, the #1 selling testosterone booster at GNC. Plus, text now and we'll include a bottle of Nugenix Thermo, our most powerful fat incinerator ever, to help you get back into shape fast. Absolutely free. Text BIKE to 321-321. That's BIKE to 321-321.
Cincinnati's ESPN 1530. Traffic.
From the UC Health Traffic Center with UC Health, the future of care is happening now through clinical trials and innovative treatments that give patients a chance for better outcomes. Visit UCHealth.com. Crews continue to work with an accident southbound 75 above the lateral. The traffic is backing into Laughlin. You can add an extra 10 minutes. Northbound 75, not a problem at all through the cut. Northbound 471 looks good too. Chuck Ingram with traffic.
This report is sponsored by Discover. Guess what? Discover's accepted at 99% of places that take credit cards nationwide. You heard right, 99%. If you don't think so, maybe it's time to face facts. You're stuck in the past. Based on the February 2024 Nielsen report, learn more at discover.com/credit card.
The PayPal app has amazingly low prices for holiday shopping. Get cashback offers in the app, and when you use the PayPal debit card, PayPal stacks 5% more in the monthly category of your choosing on up to $1,000 in purchases. Don't just pay, PayPal.
Make Hollywood Casino Lawrenceburg your game day headquarters this season. Watch all the games on their giant screen TVs and tackle the area's best game day food and beverages with all your friends. Get in on all the hockey and football action this winter with Pin Play and ESPN Bet. Hollywood Casino's online sportsbook is now live in Indiana. Score big this season at Hollywood Casino Lawrenceburg, however you want to play. Must be 21 or older. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call 1-800-9-WITH-IT or text INGAMB to 53342.
There's a lot on the line in a divorce. Your home, savings, maybe even your kids. So when you find yourself facing divorce and the unexpected directions it can take, you need a partner you can count on. I'm Rick Julius, a partner at Cordell & Cordell. Don't let divorce take more than it has to.
Schedule an appointment with one of Cordell & Cordell's Ohio or Kentucky attorneys. 513-823-2020. Office in Florence, Kentucky. 201 East 5th Street, Suite 1310, Cincinnati, Ohio 45202. Rick Julius, licensed in Pennsylvania only.
Hey, it's Mo Egger. Join us this afternoon at Twin Peaks in Westchester for the Tony and Mo football show as we talk about yesterday's Bengals win over the Browns and so much more. Starting at 3:05 on ESPN 1530 Cincinnati Sports Station.
Courtney Cronin in on Sportsmanlike. We are on ESPN Radio. We are on ESPNU. We are on Sirius XM Channel 80, where you can check us out. We're presented by our friends at Progressive Insurance. Courtney, I live in Cleveland, where I have to hear Steeler fans tell me all the time how great they are and how terrible the Browns are. And I feel like everybody has that Steeler fan friend that is a little bit obnoxious that they're sick of. A little comeuppance, okay, for everybody in Pittsburgh that thought they could dominate Lamar Jackson at every turn on Saturday afternoon. You said that you thought it was one of the most impressive performances football of the weekend, what the Ravens not only were able to do to the Steelers, but really to Russell Wilson specifically, making him look like Denver Russell Wilson and not Seattle Russell Wilson.
Especially when, like, with the game on the line in a situation like that where it's the postseason, they had a chance to go lock up the AFC North, and they didn't. And going into this game, I thought it was going to be more important for the Baltimore Ravens to win, because not only do you keep the Steelers at bay for the next 2 weeks, the division still could be won by Baltimore, and you could get the home playoff game and be one of the top 4 seeds. That's important. But it was Lamar Jackson being able to say, I finally did it. I was 1-4 against Mike Tomlin's teams coming into this game. 11 turnovers in there. We know how bad they were on third down the last time these two teams played earlier in the season. For him to be able to say, whew, I did it. I got it done. It was a playoff-like environment, and I rose to the occasion. That's what I thought was the most important element of this, that you may face this team again. Who knows how the playoff seeding is going to happen? They could end up seeing each other in the wild card round for all intents and purposes. This was a team that offensively throughout the season, there have been moments where you're like, that's MVP Lamar Jackson, or what the heck was that Lamar Jackson? Yeah. You got the former of that this week when he threw for 203 yards, 207 yards, 3 touchdowns, and an interception. But really, it was that defense that came through at the end of the game, the Marlon Humphrey interception, all but sealing it for the Baltimore Ravens on a day where I don't know if Russ turned back into a pumpkin, so to speak. I thought he actually played like a pretty decent game until the turnover. Yeah. But this red zone offense for the Steelers in a game where, I don't know how much longer they're going to have to be without George Pickens. I keep hearing, he's close. Like he's got the hamstring injury. It came on late before that Cleveland game. How much longer is that going to keep him out? They need him right now. Calvin Austin was not able to, not that anybody expected him to, but not able to carry the load 2 days ago. And the conglomerate that they're trying to put together here, knowing that Pat Freiermuth too, was pretty ineffective yesterday. He was their leading receiver going into this game without George Pickens, and it just feels like the offense is kind of coming apart at a time where you really can't afford it to.
I thought, first of all, the Russ play where he's about to score and fumbles, I mean, you make a play like that in any game. Ask Jonathan Taylor, who did it a week ago. His fumble wasn't forced. Russ's was, but it was an unforced error, really, by the Steelers. You fumble when you're about to score in a game like that against a really good team, the odds of winning are slim to none. The other play that surprised me, were you a little surprised? Tomlin goes for 4th and 6 at the Baltimore 45, down 7 on the first play of the fourth quarter. Man, sometimes, and I really like him as a coach. I don't know. Look, he's never been under 500, so far be it for me to criticize him. Sometimes the decisions he makes, specifically about when to go for it and when to punt, are very strange to me. And that one was pretty eye-opening. They don't get it. And then right off the bat, Baltimore is able to sort of go down and finish the game.
Yeah, I think if you were to criticize any coaching decision in the game, it would probably end up being that one because of then what happened afterwards for the Baltimore Ravens. As I'm trying to figure out, like, where do I – like, this is a 34-17 game. That's a 17-point deficit for
was closer than that,
but it was
though.
close. It felt closer than that. And, of course, there was the late score that put that one away for Baltimore. But – I don't really know where to assign blame here. I feel like the easiest place to do it is with Russell Wilson because we know how bad they've been in the red zone. And anytime you get down there, you can't just squander those opportunities the way that he did with the fumble and, of course, the pick six. Like, I don't want to believe that that's indicative of who they are right now, but until you tell me otherwise, like we've seen their offense do that multiple weeks in a row, whether it was the botched, what do they call it, an aborted pitch in Philadelphia the week before between him and Najee Harris on the exchange on the toss play.
Right.
Like these little mistakes keep hurting.
They kick a lot of field goals, Courtney. To your point, a lot of it is
they're very lucky. They have a great kicker, but like you're coming away with 3 instead of 7 on a more routine basis, and that worries me about your viability as a playoff team, knowing what these offenses are going to look like in the AFC in a month.
Look, the Steelers are a good team. They're not a great team. And for anybody that thought they were a Super Bowl contender, I think that they were playing a little bit above their heads as they went through November. I do think, obviously, they're going to make the playoffs. I would be surprised at this point if they were to win more than one playoff game. I just don't think, welcome to the NFL in 2024. You got to be able to have offense, and you got to be able to score touchdowns. I think Baltimore is better positioned to knock off Kansas City, and Buffalo is better positioned. The Steelers, to me, would be like 4th or 5th choice in the AFC, and it makes you wonder. Everybody thinks they're going to stick with Russ, so they got to stick with Russ. Are they willing to sign up for above average, or are they at some point really going to try to make a play to have a real franchise quarterback again? Because I don't think they can win Super Bowls until they get that thing taken care of. Yeah,
and I get like the short-term nature of it, like completely different situation, but it's kind of in age and all of those things. So maybe I'm not even comparing these the right way, but it's kind of like what Minnesota's facing right now in the decision. Like, do you keep Sam Darnold? Do you let him hit free agency? It's worked this year. You have the right setup between quarterback and play caller. Whatever's working in Pittsburgh has gotten you to a point where you're a 10-win team, but will we feel the same about that decision of, hey, you keep Russell Wilson on a short-term basis, he's in his mid-30s, like it's not like he's going to be playing that much longer.
Yeah.
If they lose to the Kansas City Chiefs, and they also have the Cincinnati Bengals to finish out the season, that's not an easy task.
Both at home. Both at home.
But if you lose those games, are you thinking differently about if this team's getting into the postseason, if they what they do in the postseason, but also long-term? Like, I know that every year we do this with the Mike Tomlin team, and you expect that like there will be 1 year where he doesn't make the postseason, 1 year where he doesn't have a record above 500, and he continues to prove us wrong. So, like, who am I to say that like they can't figure out a way to get it done? But I just have so much caution in my belief in the Pittsburgh Steelers right now and thinking, oh yeah, I'll pick this team for a deep playoff run, because when you start to see these mistakes at the quarterback level, with quarterback play and the level in which Russ is playing, I don't have a lot of confidence that if you run into a Buffalo, if you have to go on the road to Kansas City, that it's going to be any different of an outcome than what we saw on Sunday in Week 16.
So here's the situation. The Steelers right now have the tiebreaker over Baltimore because of a better conference record, but the Steelers have those 2 tough games. They have Kansas City and Pittsburgh, and then they have all of a sudden Cincinnati might be fighting for a playoff spot in that game. Baltimore, meanwhile, has 1 difficult game left on the schedule, and then they have the Browns left on the schedule.
Yeah,
so right now, I would say it's 60-40 that Baltimore ends up being the AFC North champion. They end up getting the home game, and then that puts Pittsburgh on the road, potentially going to Baltimore in the wild card round. And I would imagine, Courtney, that would be the featured game of wild card weekend. And now that they're over this little bugaboo with Lamar, I would pick the Ravens. I would say the Ravens, I think, to me, have a better chance of making a run than the Kansas City Chiefs do. Coming up next, we go back to college football. Is Ryan Day on or off the hot seat? We debate. I'm Aaron Goldhammer. She's Courtney Cronin as we continue on Sportsmanlike on ESPNU and ESPN Radio.
Georgia versus Notre Dame.
There's a different feel to the playoff.
Boise State versus Penn State.
The intensity that gets ratcheted up.
Oregon versus Ohio State.
The stakes get much higher.
Arizona State versus Texas. The college football playoff quarterfinals on ESPN Radio and ESPN.
Adam Schefter here with Vivid Seats. We've got some late-breaking news coming out of the stands. According to multiple sources, Vivid Seats fans are scoring rewards on every purchase and at a rapid pace. Obviously, these rewards are a game changer. And coupled with their MVP-worthy ticket selection, why get tickets anywhere else? Don't drop the ball this season. Shop with Vivid Seats and earn rewards on every ticket. And as the official ticketing partner of ESPN, Vivid Seats is offering you $20 off your first $200 ticket purchase with code Schefter. That's code Schefter.
If it's hot, it's at GNC. And we bring you the best new stuff first. GNC has this winter's newest in weight loss, muscle building, and wellness. And the best energy drink flavors anywhere. If it's at the top of your feed, it's already at GNC. Ask a GNC coach about the newest drops from Rise, Mutant, Alani Nu, Drip Drop, and more at your local GNC store. Or shop our full collection of flavors and online exclusives at GNC.com. If it's hot, it's at GNC. Live well.
This is Football in the Natty, brought to you in part by Ralph's American Grill and by Robert Jones Plumbing on the official home of the Bengals, Cincinnati's ESPN 1530.
Trevor Jones here for Robert Jones Plumbing. At Robert Jones Plumbing, we pride ourselves on being the experts in residential and commercial plumbing. Whether it's a small job or a major project, we do it all. 513-353-2230. Whether it's a clog, water heater issue, sewer drains, sump pumps, or eventually utility work on downspouts and gas lines, Robert Jones Plumbing has you covered. Call 513-353-2230.
Has your son or daughter achieved perfect attendance or made the honor roll at school? Take them to Ralph's American Grill to enjoy a free milkshake. Our restaurant is perfect for the whole family, whether they're here for a nice meal or looking to go beyond the dining table and take part in free line dancing lessons on select days. We also offer specials and deals during football season and other sporting events. Visit our website at ralphsgrill.com to view the complete event schedule. That's ralphsgrill.com.
The Bengals have now won 3 straight games. They beat the Cleveland Browns at Paycor Stadium Sunday 24-6. Another strong performance for the defense as they forced 3 turnovers, including 2 in the red zone.
3rd down and 6 from the Cincinnati 8. A big play here with the Bengals up by 11. Shotgun snap. Thompson Robinson lobs one into the end zone. Intercepted by Jordan Battle. He'll take a knee in the end zone. Geno Stone putting pressure on the quarterback, leading to the end zone pick.
Dan and Lapp on the call. Geno Stone had an interception of his own, his 3rd straight game with a pick. And Dorian Thompson-Robinson was running for his life all game long as the defensive line racked up 5 sacks.
This is what it's supposed to feel like for us. You know, this is our expectation. And we've just put ourselves in a position to now play some really meaningful games. And this, we didn't want to talk about what was coming up. You gotta play the right way, and I thought our guys did. I felt great about the prep all week, felt great about guys being locked in and focused during the game, found a way to get the win, and now we can turn our focus to a short week and the Denver Broncos.
Head coach Zach Taylor on the Bengals' playoff goals, which are a little more obtainable now. Cincinnati has to win their final 2 and get some help starting this Saturday against the Denver Broncos. With football in the Natty, I'm Rick Ucchino.
Tri-State Jeep buyers and football fans alike. Mike Castrucci Jeep is #1 in Cincinnati for a reason. Is it our upfront discounts, our no-nonsense pricing approach, or is it our generous and unbeatable trade-in allowances, or is it our unparalleled selection? See for yourself. Check us out online or visit us today. That's Mike Castrucci, Chrysler Jeep Dodge Ram in Fairfax.
You've been listening to Football in the Natty, brought to you by Mike Castrucci Automotive on the official home of the Bengals, Cincinnati's ESPN 1530.
Laugh your boots off with Ginger Billy at the Lawrenceburg Event Center. Saturday, March 22nd, 2025. Doors open at 7 p.m. Tickets start at just $35 on Ticketmaster. Must be 21. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-9-WITH-IT or text INGAMB to 53342.
This year, nearly 1 million pit bulls will be euthanized in U.S. shelters. These amazing dogs too often grapple with unfounded prejudices that overshadow their true nature. But there's hope, and you difference. When you adopt or support an at-risk pit bull, you're not just saving a life, you're giving a loving soul a chance at happiness. Help us get these incredible dogs from the kennel to the couch. Follow us at kenneltocouch.org.
The Bengals battle the Broncos. Coverage starts Saturday at noon on ESPN 1530, the official home of the Bengals.
Unsportsmanlike with Evan Canty and Michelle.
The Ohio State Buckeyes, they have defeated Tennessee 42-17, and Ohio State books a date in the Rose Bowl.
These guys, they love each other, and they're a great representation of Ohio State. Glad that they were able to, for the last game for those seniors, to finish with a win. They are not satisfied at all.
When you're playing a good football team, margins have been on the right side of it. Doesn't have to look like it did tonight, but it won't look good. Ultimately, we're capable of playing better than we did.
I've been looking forward to this one. I've always wanted to play in the Rose Bowl. It's been a dream of mine my whole life, so it's going to be awesome.
Well, Courtney, the temperature in Columbus was so cold on Saturday night, it actually took Ryan Day off the hot seat. Get it? Get it?
I got it, Aaron.
Unsportsmanlike is on ESPN Radio. We're on ESPN2, Sirius XM Channel 80. I'm Aaron Goldhammer. She's Courtney Cronin. We are in for Evan Canty and Michelle. I have a lot of friends. I was not there, but Courtney, I have a lot of friends that were at Ohio Stadium on Saturday night where they said you could cut the tension with a knife before the game because everybody felt the pressure that was on the coach and the team after blowing that game to Michigan back Thanksgiving weekend. And the tension was released in about 5 minutes when everybody realized how talented Ohio State is, that they were actually going to get the ball in the hands of their receivers. And now, if you talk to Columbus this morning, they have gone from being worried about firing their head coach to everybody thinking again that they should be the favorites to win the national championship.
I have to wonder, and I'll get to the Ryan Day part of all of this, because I do think this is a team, if they play that way, that's a team that can win a national championship. Chip Kelly, where was this 3 weeks ago when they played Michigan?
No idea.
Anybody know?
Brain lock. I just, did they forget Jeremiah Smith? Jeremiah Smith's probably the best player in college football. No offense to Travis Hunter and, the other, Ashton Genty. But Jeremiah Smith is an absolute beast. He cannot be covered. Every time they throw him the ball, they gain at least 10 yards. So what they do against Michigan, Courtney? They didn't throw him the ball in the fourth quarter. It was insane.
I was just stunned by that, but also knowing how they could bounce back and not just skate by Tennessee. Put the fear of God in any opponent that's going to play them. That statement that they made with a win where they put up 40-plus points. It not only makes sure that Ryan Day is secure for now and for the future, but that's a team that can go win a national championship. That's a team that can go contend with Oregon. Heck, they did it earlier in the year.
Yeah.
And they lost on a field goal because of a fake, or I guess intentional 12 men on the field penalty that ended up taking off time and stunted Ohio State's ability to get a final playoff to kick a game.
There was poor clock management at the end of that game by Ohio State, but they were right there.
I'll say this. I think Ryan Day, just the way that he talked about this game afterwards in the body language and just kind of that feeling that he probably had going through his body, he had to win this game. Because you know what we were talking about on Sunday morning? If Ohio State were to lose at home when 30,000 Tennessee fans made the 5-hour drive up from Knoxville to Columbus, we're talking about him not being the head coach at Ohio State anymore. It would have... I'm thankful that Ohio State won because it allowed us to actually talk about the college football playoff games, the system, whether you like it or not, and not talk about a coach that once again failed to win the big game. They've got a huge test ahead of them. They've got a really hard path ahead of them with Oregon coming up next in the quarterfinals. But I think that for the rest of this year, no matter what else happens from here on out, I think that he's safe. He had to win a game in the postseason. Some people say they think he needs to win too. I'm not really on that same like line of thinking for a number of different reasons. Because I just think in the 12-team expanded playoff, A, you got in.
Yeah.
B, you were one of the better seeds to get in.
Yeah.
And C, you won a game already in a format that we haven't seen before. You've already accomplished a multitude of things. Now, have you beaten your rival? No. In the 0-4 in the last 4 matchups between Michigan and Ohio State? That's the big problem. But after we left that game, end of November, on rivalry weekend, I said, man, if he doesn't win one game in the college football playoff, which of course would be the first one against Tennessee, this is such a different conversation around this Buckeye team. Now, going forward, can they beat Oregon? I think they can. Can they end up beating Georgia? Can they beat any of these other teams that are vying for a national championship? If they play that way, if they get that version of Will Howard, if they get that version of the defense, if the run game can sustain the way that it did on a very cold night, and of course most of these games are going to be moving indoors they're going to be playing in the Rose Bowl, so they won't even have to worry about the elements here in a couple weeks. But it was impressive. That effort was not, that was not that I didn't expect that, but that sort of beatdown that they put on Tennessee was more than just a win. That was a statement about somebody in the direction that this team is going under that somebody.
Yeah, I thought it was quite a flex for Ohio State.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Tennessee was missing most of their playmakers. And
a lot of guys got hurt early on.
Yes, and then Dylan Sampson, basically their top running back, SEC Offensive Player of the Year, had no impact on this game whatsoever. So there were some other things that helped Ohio State out along the way. As they were celebrating the blowout win, though, I thought Kirk Herbstreit, I thought this was pretty eye-opening. ESPN college football analyst talking about Ryan Day, the lunatic fringe of the Ohio State fan base, and then also a certain show that airs over on ESPN at 10 o'clock every weekday. Take a listen.
Now, Kirk, how much of this softens the blow of that Michigan loss? More work to do, right, for folks to forgive and forget that one?
I can't speak on behalf of the lunatic fringe. I'm not sure how they operate. The lunatic fringe at Ohio State is as powerful as anywhere in the country.
How big is the fringe?
It used to be 8 to 10. I think it's grown now to about 15 to 20. So I don't know. I'm sure they'll be happy tonight, be fired up about what the Ohio State team did, but God forbid they lose to Oregon. They may want to fire them again.
But that's not reality. I mean, that's the thing. When you hear pundits on this network and other places talk about that with certainty, it's nonsense, frankly. I mean, the public doesn't pull the trigger and get rid of the coach.
No.
The administrators do, and they're behind them.
Yeah. First Take tried to fire him. They thought he was done. So I'll be excited to see what they talk about on Monday after this performance. They had him out. They're trying to find replacements. But here he is. He's still got his hat on. He's still coaching.
First Take coming up 10 a.m. Eastern time on ESPN. I'm sure you can check that out. For Herbie, it was more than just a lunatic fringe. Courtney,
there's a lot of people talking about this, so I guess we're all crazy.
Look, they have 3 goals at Ohio State every year, and beating Purdue only does so much for you. He's 67-10, which is an amazing record, but a lot of those wins are against, teams that can't hold a candle to Ohio State's talent level, where I could have coached Ohio State to those victories. Now, I have been a victim of the lunatic fringe before. I'm not a Buckeye fan here, and I'm in Cleveland and do a show in Cleveland. The Buckeye Booster Club here has called advertising partners of ours to try to get me to stop endorsing because I don't root for Ohio State or bleed scarlet and gray. That's craziness. Message board craziness. Doxing Ryan Day's wife, yelling at her at a grocery store. That's craziness. Saying we should beat Michigan, win the Big Ten, and win a national championship, and that's the standard. I think that's what the vast majority of Ohio State fans think, not some lunatic fringe.
It wasn't the lunatic fringe that declared that he needs to win this game against Tennessee in order to keep his job. Everybody with a stake in this, and even those who don't and are just fans of college football, understand how it works, understand what the ante has been up to. When you're a place like Ohio State and you finish in the top 5 of the college football playoff rankings, top 5 of the AP top 25 poll, and you haven't been able to win a national championship in the last couple of years, there is always going to be the need to get better and the need to show that you are one of the most dominant teams in college football. Have they been that in the regular season? Yes. Have they been that in the postseason? At the end of the day, raising a championship? No, not really. Not really in the last couple of years. And I think that that's where people stand on this. Like, you guys get so close, and then you lose to Georgia. You get so close, and you falter here or there. You get so close against your rival, or in some cases, you really don't at all. And I think that that game really does matter. Now, I wouldn't say that it's lunatics calling for his job, or it's just First Take trying to fire him, quote unquote. I think that normal people who understand how it works in college football, that it's a what have you done for me lately sort of business. It's like that in the NFL, but specifically in college football, when you have some wealthy boosters willing to pay a buyout to get somebody else in there, if you don't feel that the direction of the team is going the right way under a certain coach, there's always going to be money to be found to pay somebody to get out. Now, of course, this buyout is, I think, a reported $40 million for Ryan Day.
It's a lot.
Go ask Nebraska. Go ask other teams. They pay these buyouts, and I
Texas
think
A&M, didn't they pay $75
million to get Jimbo Fisher out of there?
That's
so
right. It's wild.
I wonder how Ryan Day feels about this too, because of course it's like his fan base that's now glowing and excited because they're going to the Rose Bowl and going to play Oregon.
Right.
Like, they're happy right now, but this is a fan base that'll turn on you very quickly if you don't deliver there. Now, will the noise be fire Ryan Day, and can you take that noise like with a grain of salt, or are you actually like, wow, this has some real legs to it? Like, it's valid at this point. I don't believe that. I think that he's already done what he's needed to do this season to keep his job.
Yep.
And it's always going to be national championship is what you set your sights on. But in a 12-team format where there's more teams contending for it, I actually think it buys him a little bit more flexibility to not have to go win the big one versus, if it was a 4-team thing, feeling like, okay, we are one of the best 4 teams in the country. We have to get there.
Yeah.
And if you don't, then it's a failure.
I really believe, despite what Herbie said during the broadcast, I believe that if this was not a 12-team playoff year, if it was a 4-team playoff and Ohio State's loss to Michigan eliminated them from the postseason, I think a coaching change at Ohio State would have happened already. Sure. That's number one. And number two is, if you think this one win against Tennessee is going to take Ryan Day off the hot seat, that's not how this works. If they get blown out by Oregon, I still think a coaching change is possible. And I think if he loses to Michigan again for the 5th consecutive year, and oh, by the way, they're spending big NIL bucks on a big quarterback, and that's all part of the narrative that's coming in this rivalry, then I think Ryan Day is absolutely still on the hot seat. The administration doesn't decide whether a coach is on the hot seat or not. Ultimately, the fans and the media decide whether Ryan Day's on the hot seat. And in this case, I can tell you, just being here in the state of Ohio, I don't think he's totally off the hot seat, despite the big win over Tennessee on Saturday night. Ohio State, Oregon next in the Rose Bowl. That is going to be must-see TV on New Year's Day. Coming up next, the Bengals' playoff hopes somehow are still alive. Does Joe Burrow belong in the MVP conversation? And do the Cleveland Browns need to blow it up? We talk about it next as we continue on Sportsmanlike is on ESPN Radio and ESPNU.
The NBA on Christmas Day on ESPN Radio. Tip-off with the Spurs and Knicks is at noon Eastern. Followed by the Timberwolves and Mavericks.
Christmas gets away.
Merry Christmas, Merry Christmas, Merry Christmas. A Christmas Day doubleheader on ESPN Radio, ESPN, and on ABC.
Cincinnati's ESPN 1530. Traffic.
From the UCL Traffic Center with UC Health, the future of care is happening now through clinical trials and innovative treatments that give patients a chance for better outcomes. Visit UCHealth.com. Southbound 75 is looking much better out of Laughlin down to the lateral. The earlier accident that had the left lane blocked off, clear and out of the way. Clean slate once again on the highways if you're heading to the airport for the Christmas holiday. No trouble getting there. 275 looks great. Chuck Ingram with traffic.
This report is sponsored by PayPal. This season, the PayPal app has amazingly low prices for holiday shopping. Get exclusive cashback offers in the app. And with the PayPal debit card, PayPal stacks 5% more in the monthly category of your choosing on up to $1,000 in purchases. Don't just pay, PayPal.
The holidays are all about family time, and my family loves to spend time at Skyline. Whether it's with folks visiting from out of town or simply getting caught up with each other, when it's time to celebrate family during the holiday season, do what we do. Make it Skyline time.
You okay?
I can't sleep with this cough.
Sounds like you need to vaporize that cold.
Vaporize?
Yeah, with NyQuil VapoCool. It's NyQuil plus a rush of Vicks vapors.
Whoa.
So you ready to get some sleep? Thank you, NyQuil VapoCool.
NyQuil VapoCool, the vaporizing nighttime coughing, aching, fever, best sleep with a cold medicine. And to vaporize sore throat pain, try Vicks VapoCool drops. Use as directed. Keep out of reach of children.
Want to make this Christmas the most unforgettable yet? Genesis Diamonds is here to help with our most dazzling selection ever and 5 years 0% interest financing. Hi, it's David Cooper at Genesis Diamonds. Imagine the look in her eyes opening that box, seeing an elegant diamond tennis bracelet or a stunning designer necklace. Genesis showcases are fully stocked with the classics as well as the latest one-of-a-kind fashion jewelry from world-class designers. Unique, handcrafted items you cannot find anywhere else. And we're featuring our largest ever selection of luxury pre-owned Rolex watches. At Genesis, our non-commissioned experts will guide you, respecting your price range, and whatever you choose, you can divide the price by 60 to get your super low payment. This year, give the gift that sends the message of love like nothing else. A beautiful, meaningful, and memorable piece of jewelry from Genesis Diamonds. Get holiday store hours, directions, finance details, and more at GenesisDiamonds.com. Genesis Diamonds and luxury pre-owned Rolexes on Montgomery Road. See store for details.
From the Johnson Cooling Tempstar Weather Center, here's your forecast.
This report is sponsored by Miami Valley Gaming.
Starting off this morning in the low 20s, so not quite as cold. We do see a lot more cloud cover today, and temperatures, though, back into the 40s. We'll top out around 45 with rain chances late in the evening. That's your 9 First Warning forecast. I'm meteorologist Cameron Harden.
Celebrate New Year's Eve at Miami Valley Gaming. It's the best party in town, and it's all free.
Must be 21. Ohio Problem Gambling Helpline, 1-800-589-9966, or visit org.ohio.gov. Ready to take a break? Visit timeoutohio.com.
Monday Midday Quarterback with Tony Pike. Your Gridiron Connection. It's just football. Tomorrow at noon on ESPN 1530.
Now goes back in the original direction. Burrow to throw. Steps up. Throws. And it's caught for the touchdown. T. Higgins with the catch. He tosses the ball way up into the air like a geyser. Burrow was being pulled down and just flung it forward for the touchdown.
I've crossed off the Cincinnati Bengals for the playoffs so many times and then uncrossed them. I've decided these are the cats that have 9 lives. Unsportsmanlike. I'm Aaron Goldhammer. She's Courtney Cronin, ESPN Radio. We are on ESPNU. You can hit us up. The Dr. Pepper call-in line, Courtney, is open. 888-SAY-ESPN, 888-729-3776. I don't know if beating the current state of the Cleveland Browns really deserves a lot of conversation. I will tell you, 7 straight games, Joe Burrow's gone over 250 and has thrown at least 3 touchdown passes. Just based on the counting stats, Courtney Cronin, I think that Joe Burrow has definitely put himself back in the conversation as one of the best QBs in the NFL.
Sure. And I mean, when you take a look at what he did yesterday, 252 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, like he continues to put himself in play at a very high level, rather, because I know that there was this conversation about, are they a playoff team, hopeful, are they not, could they back their way in? They're 7-8 right now.
Yeah.
If they get to 9 wins, do we think that they get the 7 seed? I'm still a little bit skeptical of that, but if there's any quarterback that you'd want to like give your team a chance down the stretch after your defense effectively torpedoed the season early on because of how poorly they played, sure, it would end up being Joe Burrow. And I mean, you can take a look at like his passing numbers, 39 passing touchdowns, most in the NFL this season. Yep. Yards per game, 282 more or less. The QBR, 74. His completion percentage is top 6. Those are MVP level numbers. Those are numbers that when you take a look at the quarterbacks who are in that mix, like the real contenders. So Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, and then Joe Burrow. And then, of course, there's the non-quarterbacks like a Saquon Barkley, a Derrick Henry that are in the mix as well. Burrow deserves to be there as much as anybody else. It's not his fault entirely that he's on a bad team or a team that like, you use bad loosely here, because they very well could be vying for a playoff spot if they win their next two, and they're going to need some luck to happen elsewhere in order for a couple other teams to lose to get them in. But in a year where they could have thrown in the towel, in a year where they could have been like, forget this, Jamar Chase isn't happy, T. Higgins isn't happy,
draft
defense
pick time.
is awful, start thinking about 2025. That's like, his house got broken into a few weeks ago. Like, he's had a lot going on, things that are completely out of his control. Yet he's playing some of the best football that we've seen him play. And I think for that reason alone, you put a quarterback, usually you find an MVP on a team that is going to the postseason. Even if they don't get there, I still think he deserves to be in the mix.
Yeah, deserves to get votes. I think, first of all, they've got to do something about their slow starts. Like losing that game to New England back the first week of the season. Right now for them,
last couple of years they've been doing that.
It's the difference between making and missing the playoffs, and it's unacceptable. The other thing, the offseason dysfunction, Courtney, in both Dallas, San Francisco, Cincinnati, I think it played a role in all these teams struggling. You tell me your read.
I agree with that.
Brandon Ayuk's situation, T. Higgins' situation, Jamar Chase's situation, like all of those things I think just affect the way a team prepares. It felt like once they got over all that drama, the Bengals had one of the three best offenses in the NFL, have a top three quarterback in the NFL. I think they had trouble getting over all of the distractions. And those were some self-inflicted wounds, because a lot of teams would just sign Jamar Chase to a giant contract because he's a top 2 wide receiver in the NFL. Why would you want to break him and Joe Burrow up ever under any circumstances?
Well, think about, throw the Dallas Cowboys in there too. Another team that is not going to the postseason. They were eliminated last night in the win that they had over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. There's something to be said about self-created dysfunction that, yes, you should be good enough to rise above whatever, to be able to snap into it and, hit the ground running when the regular season starts. That's in theory, that's not in reality. Yeah. And what we've seen this past off season with teams that had these big contract holdouts that don't end up either don't get remedied or they get remedied at the 11th hour, like Dak Prescott signing his contract on the way to the stadium for week 1 in Cleveland. Why drag those things out when you know how difficult it is to play in the NFL and also to sustain winning? Nobody knows that more than the San Francisco 49ers, who had a host of these themselves. You mentioned Brandon Ayuk. Of course, there was Trent Williams in there. In dealing with some of the other injuries that they had, it feels like you can never really get off the ground. That's how I felt about the Cincinnati Bengals from the very start. And it isn't just the fact that, Lou Anarumo and this defense, they've taken a step back this year. Some of that's injury related. Some of that I think is just like regression in play. But if are we not sure that this is going to end up being the same thing this offseason? Did you see the thing that was floated a couple weeks ago that somebody suggested in speaking with people around the league that the Cincinnati Bengals should actually trade Jamar Chase because they know that ownership group doesn't want to dole out top dollar for a receiver? Like, I get it.
Come on.
I truly understand the logic behind that, but you also just paid Joe Burrow.
Right.
If you trade Jamar Chase, then you're not going to have T. Higgins here next year. Yeah. Mike Gesicki's gone. So Andre Yoshivas is your best receiver returning. Like, that's self-sabotage. And it feels like a lot of these teams that have went through the same thing that the Bengals went through in the preseason, where Joe Burrow coming off the wrist surgery, finally healthy, ready to go, and then he doesn't have his top weapon there. Yeah. And how many times have we heard this season? Oh, we're not on the same page. And we've heard receivers and quarterbacks talking about that, like week 10 and onwards. It isn't something that you just seamlessly fix. All right, everybody's in camp. Okay, we've had a couple games together. It's fine.
Right.
That's something that you have to build over time. And
chemistry is real.
I don't believe that you should ever put yourself in a situation where you don't have the utmost time to do that.
Yeah, and I think also, Burrow and Chase have been doing this, to your point, Courtney. They've been doing it since college, that they've been building that chemistry up with each other. All right, on the Browns, just for a second. I have a notable, famous Browns fan. I'm not going to reveal who it is, but I will name drop that I have famous people in my cell phone who sent me this text yesterday. This was 1:37 p.m. for a 1 o'clock game. First time in my life that I willingly put on a Christmas movie over watching them today. I'm never in that class, never. I hate when people say they're not going to watch, but it's that bad. They have lost us all. Folks, the Dorian Thompson-Robinson era is about as bad as we all thought in his career. Courtney, 1 touchdown, 9 interceptions. You've watched a lot of bad quarterbacks. Any advice for Browns fans where they're at right now?
I mean, just don't watch Love Actually. Put on a good Christmas movie.
Yeah, Elf, maybe something on Disney+.
Something happy.
Yeah, would be
something to make you forget about that loss.
Be a better option than that. All right. Did you know it's Festivus today? The airing of the grievances is next on Unsportsmanlike on ESPN Radio and ESPNU.
We all hear the radio ads about the IRS. They tell you to be afraid, to be scared, and they try to frighten you into calling. I'm not here to do that. Tax Relief Advocates is different. TRA is here to tell you that if you owe money to the IRS, whether it's $5,000, $50,000, or $500,000, we have a solution. It doesn't matter if you're sitting in your car, at work, or with your kids. No matter where you are, call now. 800-575-6759. Don't lose hope. TRA can eliminate or reduce what you owe to the IRS. Generous programs are now available that can give you a fresh start. Our passion is taxes and helping individuals fix their IRS problems. We have over 1,000 5-star reviews on Google and an A+ with the Better Business Bureau. You don't need to be afraid of the IRS any longer. End your tax nightmare today by visiting us online at TRA.com or call 800-575-6759. That's 800-575-6759. Tax Relief Advocates. Real solutions for real people.
Cincinnati's ESPN 1530. Traffic.
From the UC Health Traffic Center with UC Health, the future of care is happening now through clinical trials and innovative treatments that give patients a chance for better outcomes. Visit UCHealth.com. Southbound 75 is looking much better out of Laughlin down to the lateral of their earlier accident that had the left lane blocked off, clear and out of the way. Clean slate once again on the highways if you're heading to the airport for the Christmas holiday. No trouble getting there. 275 looks great. Chuck Ingram with traffic.
This report is sponsored by KFC. 'Tis the season to fill your table and feed the whole family with KFC's Festive Feast. Get 6 original recipe tenders, 6 pieces of classic fried chicken, 2 sides, and 3 sauces for just $25.99.
Cigars are not a safe alternative to cigarettes. Looking for a premium smoke? Then welcome to the world of Al Capone cigars, where we're keeping it real. Using only premium natural leaf wrappers, Al Capones are hand-rolled for a unique look and smooth flavor. From mellow to bold to the rich flavor of sweet cognac. Al Capone cigars stand out. Elevate your style with Al Capone My Way. Find us at alcaponecigar.com. That's alcaponecigar.com.
Coverage varies by plan. View contracts and exclusions at endurancewarranty.com. If you have a 2004 or newer vehicle that's out of warranty or about to be, Endurance is urgently notifying U.S. drivers about their low-cost vehicle coverage plan designed to save drivers thousands on rising vehicle repair costs. Those who qualify can pick their plan, coverage, and repair shop. Roadside service, towing, and rental cars included. All covered repairs get paid directly to the repair shop for you. Call now for your free quote. Call 800-431-8958. That's 800-431-8958.
The PayPal app has amazingly low prices for holiday shopping. Get cashback offers in the app, and when you use the PayPal debit card, PayPal stacks 5% more in the monthly category of your choosing on up to $1,000 in purchases. Don't just pay, PayPal.
Hey, Ohio, Prime Sports has arrived. The only book where you can lay 108 instead of 110 on all your favorite teams. Football, baseball, basketball, hockey. Why would you risk more to win the same amount at another sports book? Download the Prime Sports Ohio app or visit our website, primesportsbook.com, and use promo code JUSTSPORTS to get a welcome bonus up to $100. And be a member of the Prime Sports family.
Terms and conditions apply. Visit website for details. Must be 21 or older and present in Ohio. If you or anyone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call 1-800-GAMBLER.
I'm Rick Julius, a partner at Cordell & Cordell. Divorce is more than just a legal process. It's a life-changing event that can impact your future, finances, and your relationship with your children. You've worked hard to build a life that you're proud of, and you deserve a legal partner who will work just as hard to protect it.
Schedule an appointment with one of Cordell & Cordell's Ohio or Kentucky attorneys. 513-823-2020. Office in Florence, Kentucky. 201 East 5th Street, Suite 1310, Cincinnati, Ohio 45202. Rick Julius. Licensed in Pennsylvania only.
Portions of the following program were pre-recorded.
From the ESPN 1530 studio. Powered by Madewell Restoration. Greater Cincinnati's roofing and exterior restoration experts. Madewell Restoration.
ESPN 1530, WCKY Cincinnati. The official home of the Bengals.
Now, you're going to hear about it.
Unsportsmanlike is on ESPNU. We are on ESPN Radio. We're on Sirius XM Channel 80. The opportunity for you to air the grievances to kick off Festivus today is at 888-SAY-ESPN, 888-729-3776. That's the Dr. Pepper call-in line. Now, Courtney Cronin, I'm Aaron Goldhammer. I think we've got to start with an explanation of what Festivus is, because you said to me that you don't have a feel for Festivus. How is that possible? You're an American.
I've never watched Seinfeld, and I know that that's like, whoa, like as a sports writer, there's like two things you can't admit: that you don't like Bruce Springsteen's music and that you've never seen Seinfeld. Well, I'm a byproduct of the early 90s. Sue me if that's like an unpopular
Did your
opinion,
parents not let you watch Seinfeld? Did you not have a television?
I wasn't
like,
a
what's
sitcom
wrong?
person. I was not a sitcom person. I didn't watch. I'm trying to think of the shows that I didn't watch in the 90s. Didn't watch Friends. Didn't watch Frasier. Didn't watch Mad About You.
What were you watching? You were watching the Bears in the 90s? They had terrible quarterbacks.
No, actually, my parents wouldn't take us to games because the team was so bad. I was watching Rocko's Modern Life, Ren and Stimpy, the Rugrats,
a lot of
Are You Afraid
Nickelodeon.
of the Dark, Goosebumps. Yeah, a lot of Nickelodeon. I was a byproduct of the 90s, and I don't know. I didn't watch Seinfeld. I never really got into it over the years. Like, yes, I obviously know what it is. I know it's a show about nothing. Like, I'm not dumb, but like I just don't understand the whole Festivus thing. I hear we do it every year. Everybody airs grievances. Pat does this every single day at 7:45 Eastern time. So
he doesn't have to wait.
I don't know how different this is than what we usually have on this show.
Excellent point. So Festivus is a holiday in part created by Seinfeld to combat the commercialism of Christmas. It's December 23rd every year. There's the Festivus poll. There's the Festivus dinner. But Festivus, as you heard, George Costanza's dad explain at the beginning of the clip there, it begins with the airing of grievances. And so, Courtney, I will hand it off to you. Give all of us the opportunity to air some grievances, and you can air yours if you'd like at 888-SAY-ESPN, 888-729-3776. Let's see if you understand the assignment, Courtney. It's time for you to air some grievances.
Do I get any like NFL Films music during this, or is it just like I have to be silent? Pat, can you help me out here?
Shana, dun, 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 dun. There we go.
I don't feel like I can like really like lean into the things that annoy the hell out of me unless I have some good theme music with me. So I thought about this, and I think that we go through this every Saturday and Sunday when we watch college football to watching the pro game. I really don't like the discrepancies in rules between college football and the NFL. So like pass interference, having 1 foot in versus 2 feet in, the way that defensive backs can play at the college level and get away with certain things versus what they can do at the NFL level. That's probably my biggest sports grievance currently. Why not have the same rules from both sports? Like, I don't understand the logic for it, and nobody can really explain this to me. The amount of times I've asked, why are the rules not uniform? Because would that not help the product by the time these college football players are ready to play in the NFL? Would it not help them have a much more easy transition into the league? Obviously, it's going to be more difficult because the talent level and the gap in talent level shrinks a little bit when you get to the pros. But why are the rules different? Like, I just, certain things don't make sense to me. And it always strikes me too, like 2-minute timeout versus the 2-minute warning. If they're effectively the same thing, can you not call them the same thing?
No,
I don't get it.
I think the NFL has like a copyright on 2-minute warning, which is why college football is not
so
using
dumb.
it. I want to agree.
So dumb.
Do you have any of these friends in your life that when your team loses, they like to text you and gloat Like,
Yes, of course. I think everybody has friends that do that.
No, those aren't friends. Like, when it's a real brutal, tough loss, I root for the Denver Broncos. Rough go on Thursday Night Football over the Chargers. I didn't need to see 5 texts from a bunch of Giant and Jet fans rubbing it in. You guys don't even root for the Chargers. Then my wife had some of this happening after Indiana lost to Notre Dame on. Indiana had a great year. Like, don't rub it in. It makes you feel better because someone else's team. That's a bad friend.
Have you met Pat Costello? Pat is number one on that, doing that stuff.
Yeah, but he's like a Philly fan, so that's like par for the course.
It's obnoxious. It's just
I will say when it's a team, when it's a fan of a bad team. So you saying, Aaron, you have Jets and Giants friends.
Yes.
Who are fans of those teams.
Yes.
Those people coming out of the woodwork and speaking out of the side of their neck on that.
How dare
when
you?
You can't, like, if it was a team of a winning franchise, a team of a functional franchise, not a dysfunctional one, I guess I could sort of understand it. It's still kind of a jerk move, but at least it'd be like, oh, well, you could get to this level if you do X, Y, and when it's